The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep hum that echoed through the circular hall. Admiral Kang Minho walked in with calm, measured steps, his dark blue uniform perfectly pressed despite the long journey from Earth. Behind him followed Dr. Park Ji-woo, carrying a small data pad, and Captain Lee Sujin, her hand resting casually on her ceremonial sword. The chamber was already full. 12 different alien species sat in their designated sections, each group whispering among themselves in their native languages. The air felt thick with tension, like the moment before a storm breaks. Prime Minister Velthar of the Altarian Empire stood at the center podium. His tall, crystal-like body caught the harsh chamber lights and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had ruled for centuries. "This emergency session is now in order," Velthar announced. His crystal face turned toward the human delegation. "We are here to address the growing concern about humanity's rapid expansion and dangerous technological development." Admiral Kang remained standing while the other humans took their seats. He had been Earth's representative for 15 years and had seen many council sessions. But this felt different. This felt like an attack. "Admiral Kang," Velthar continued, "the Council has serious concerns about your species' recent activities." The first to speak was Ambassador Thex of the Veltari Federation. His snake-like body coiled as he leaned forward. "Human quantum computers are advancing too fast. They threaten the balance of computational power in the galaxy." Dr. Park shifted in her seat but said nothing. Her quantum research had indeed made breakthrough after breakthrough in recent months. What the Veltari did not know was that humans were already 3 generations ahead of what they had shared with the galaxy. Next came Representative Zilla from the Zephyrian Collective, her bird-like features ruffled with obvious distress. "Human. Terraforming projects complete in decades what takes us centuries. This is not natural. It disrupts established colonial claims and trade agreements." Captain Lee almost smiled at this complaint. Human terraforming was indeed fast, but only because they had learned to work with planets instead of fighting against them. The other species still used old, brutal methods that scarred worlds for generations. The complaints continued for an hour. The Crystalline Collective worried about human neural interface technology. The Aquatic Union feared human underwater cities. The Silicon Brotherhood called human AI development reckless and threatening. Finally, Velthar raised his hand for silence. "The pattern is clear. Humanity refuses to accept the natural limits that govern civilized species. Your growth is too rapid. Your technology advances too quickly. Your people spread too far, too fast." Admiral Kang stepped forward. "Prime Minister, with respect, what exactly are you proposing?" The chamber fell silent. Every alien eye turned toward Velthar. The crystal being's face remained expressionless, but his next words carried the weight of a death sentence. "The Galactic Council hereby demands that humanity accept the following restrictions, effective immediately." A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. Admiral Kang read the terms with growing disbelief. First, all human technological research must be submitted to Council review before implementation. Second, human expansion is limited to your current 17 colony worlds. No new settlements may be established without Council approval. Third, all human vessels must carry Council observers during any deep space missions. The list continued. Restrictions on trade. Limits on population growth. Requirements for alien oversight of human education systems. Fourth, Velthar's voice grew colder. Humanity must share all current and future military technologies with the Council for security evaluation. Dr. Park could not stay quiet any longer. She stood up, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "You fear us not because we are dangerous, but because we are advancing too quickly for your comfort." Murmurs of anger rippled through the alien delegations. How dare a human speak so boldly to the council? Your fears are based on jealousy, not facts, Dr. Park continued. When we developed faster ships, we shared the technology. When we created better medical scanners, we gave them freely to every species here. When the plague hit Zephyrian colonies last year, human doctors saved millions of your people. That is exactly the problem, shrieked Ambassador Thex. Your gifts create dependence. Your advances make our own research obsolete before we can complete it. Captain Lee stood now, her voice calm but firm. So you want us to stop growing, stop learning, stop becoming better than we were yesterday. You want us to become like you, Admiral Kang added quietly. Content with the same technologies for centuries. Happy with slow, predictable progress that threatens no one. Velthar's crystal form flashed brighter. We want you to accept your place in the galactic order. Every species must know its limits. And if we refuse? Admiral Kang asked. The chamber exploded with angry voices from a dozen species. Some called for immediate economic sanctions. Others demanded military action. A few suggested simply declaring humanity a rogue species and cutting all contact. Velthar raised his hand again. When silence returned, his voice carried the full authority of the Council. If humanity refuses to accept these reasonable restrictions, the Council will implement economic sanctions within 30 days. Trade agreements will be suspended. Diplomatic relations will be severed. And if necessary, military action will be authorized to protect the galaxy from human recklessness. Admiral Kang looked at each alien delegation in turn. These beings had benefited enormously from human innovations. Their worlds were safer because of human medical advances. Their ships flew faster because of human engine designs. Their colonies prospered because of human agricultural techniques. Yet here they sat, demanding that humanity stop being human. You are giving us 30 days to consider becoming your subjects instead of your equals, Admiral Kang said finally. We are giving you 30 days to avoid becoming our enemies, Velthar replied. The human delegation exchanged glances. Dr. Park packed her datapad. Captain Lee adjusted her sword. Admiral Kang straightened his uniform. We will consider your request, Admiral Kang said formally. But as the humans walked out of the chamber, something in their manner made several alien representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. The humans had not argued further. They had not pleaded or negotiated. They had simply accepted the ultimatum with the same calm they might show when discussing the weather. Ambassador Choi Nari, watching from the gallery, smiled slightly as the human delegation passed. She had seen that look before, during her years in Earth's military. It was the expression soldiers wore when they had already decided to fight. The chamber doors closed behind the humans with the same deep hum that had announced their arrival. But somehow, the sound felt more final this time, more like an ending than a beginning. In the council chamber, alien representatives congratulated themselves on finally putting the upstart humans in their place. 30 days, they agreed, would be more than enough time for humanity to realize they had no choice but to submit. None of them noticed that Admiral Kang had never actually agreed to anything. 28 days had passed since the Council's ultimatum. The galaxy waited for humanity's response, but silence was all they received. Commander Yu Jiho sat in his intelligence office on Nexus Prime, staring at reports that made no sense. His job was to track activities across the galaxy, but human space had become a blank spot on his screens. Every spy satellite, every listening post, every informant network that had once provided steady streams of data from human colonies now reported the same thing, nothing. Sir, his aide entered with another stack of reports. The trade monitoring station near Earth detected something strange 3 days ago. Every human cargo ship in the sector suddenly changed course and headed back toward their home systems. Yu Jiho frowned. All of them? Every single one, sir. even the ones carrying critical medical supplies to the outer colonies. This was wrong. Humans were traders by nature. Their merchant fleets moved constantly through the galaxy, bringing goods and services to dozens of worlds. For them to simply stop trading was like stars stopping their shine. On the other side of the station, Ambassador Choi Nari walked through the diplomatic quarter with measured steps. Other aliens hurried past her, but none tried to speak with her anymore. The few who did found her answers strange and unsettling. "Ambassador," called Minister Veltan of the Aquatic Union, rushing to catch up with her. "What is humanity's response to the Council's reasonable demands?" Choi Nari stopped and turned. Her smile was peaceful, but somehow sad. "Minister, have you ever tried to catch morning mist in your hands?" What does that mean?" "It means some things cannot be held by force," she replied and continued walking. Similar conversations happened across the galaxy. Human diplomats gave strange, puzzling answers to direct questions. They spoke in riddles about water flowing, around stones and birds choosing their own sky. Deep in human space, engineer Kim Tae-hyung stood in a massive construction bay that should not have existed. Project Exodus was the largest undertaking in human history, and it had been planned in complete secrecy for over 2 years. "Status report," Kim ordered as he walked between towering construction mechs. "Colony Ship 7 is complete," reported his assistant. "The new propulsion system tested perfectly. We can carry 50,000 people plus supplies for 5 years of independent living." "And the other projects?" "Manufacturing platforms are ready for transport. Agricultural stations are loaded. The medical research facilities have been packaged for reassembly. All critical infrastructure can be moved within 72 hours of the order." Kim nodded. Admiral Kang had been right when he returned from the council meeting. The galaxy was not ready for true partnership with humanity. They wanted humans to be useful pets, not equal partners. But humans had learned long ago that sometimes the best response to rejection was to simply leave. On day 29, every human embassy, trade post, research station, and diplomatic mission across the galaxy received the same encrypted message. Screens flickered to life simultaneously in dozens of star systems. Admiral Kang appeared on every display, standing in what looked like the bridge of a ship. Behind him, stars moved in patterns that no alien recognized. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, his voice calm and clear. 29 days ago, the Galactic Council presented humanity with a choice: submit to restrictions that would limit our growth, our research, and our freedom, or face the consequences. In the council chambers on Nexus Prime, emergency alarms began sounding. Representatives rushed to their seats as Admiral Kang's message continued. "The Council fears human advancement. They worry that our technologies develop too quickly. They believe our expansion threatens their established order." Velthar's crystal form flashed with angry light. "Cut the transmission!" "We cannot, sir," his aide reported frantically. "It's broadcasting on all frequencies. Using quantum encryption we cannot break." After careful consideration, Admiral Kang continued, "Humanity respectfully declines the Council's offer. We will not accept restrictions on our development. We will not limit our growth to please others, and we will not submit to oversight from those who see us as threats rather than partners." The image shifted, showing vast fleets of human ships, moving through space with purpose and coordination that took alien observers' breath away. "Effective immediately, all human presence will be withdrawn from Council space and affiliated territories. Our trade agreements are terminated. Our diplomatic relations are suspended. Our research partnerships are concluded." Captain Lee Sujin watched the broadcast from her flagship as human evacuation fleets moved into position around every human outpost in the galaxy. The operation had been planned for months, with every detail carefully considered. "All stations report ready, Captain," her communications officer announced. "Begin Phase 1, she ordered. Across the galaxy, human facilities began shutting down with mechanical precision. Research stations that had operated for decades powered down their equipment. Trade posts that had served as economic hubs for entire sectors closed their doors. Diplomatic missions that had maintained peace between species for generations went dark. Dr. Park Ji-woo supervised the evacuation of her quantum research facility on Rigel 7. Alien scientists who had worked alongside. Humans for years watched in confusion as their colleagues packed equipment that many had never seen before. Dr. Park called her Veltari research partner. Surely this is just a negotiating tactic. You cannot simply abandon decades of joint research. Dr. Park looked up from the quantum resonance chamber she was carefully dismantling. My friend, did you know that everything we have shared with the galaxy represents technology that humans developed over 20 years ago? The alien's snake-like form coiled in surprise. That is impossible. Your quantum computers are the most advanced in known space. They are the most advanced that we have chosen to share, Dr. Park corrected gently. We gave the galaxy our outdated designs while we continued to advance. We shared our old medicines while developing new ones. We taught you farming techniques we had already improved upon. The evacuation continued for days. Human cargo ships, suddenly recalled from trade routes, docked at human stations only long enough to load critical personnel and equipment. Everything else was simply abandoned. But something strange happened during the withdrawals. Equipment that aliens had assumed was standard galactic technology turned out to be human-designed. Communication networks that connected star systems relied on human quantum transmitters. Defensive systems that protected worlds operated on human engineering principles. As human technicians shut down their systems and left, the galaxy began to experience failures that no one had expected. Commander Yu Ji-ho received reports of communication breakdowns across 3 sectors. Defense grids on outer rim worlds flickered and died. Medical facilities found their advanced scanners offline. Transportation networks that had run smoothly for decades suddenly faced delays and malfunctions. Sir, his aide said nervously, we are receiving reports of system failures from over 40 worlds. They all seem to be related to human technology. Yu Ji-ho felt a cold fear growing in his chest. How much of our infrastructure depends on human systems? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. As the reports continued to pour in, the awful truth became clear. Humanity had not simply been members of the galactic community. Without anyone realizing it, they had become the invisible foundation that held everything together. And now, they were gone. 6 months had passed since humanity vanished from the galaxy. Commander Yu Ji-ho had thought the worst problems would be communication failures and trade disruptions. He had been terribly wrong. The emergency alert that changed everything came. From the outer rim at 0347 Standard Galactic Time. 3 worlds under attack simultaneously. Not pirates or rebels, but something far worse. Sir, his communications officer called out, voice shaking. We're receiving distress signals from Kepler Station, New Thessia, and Rigel Colony. All 3 report contact with Devourer forces. Yu Ji-ho felt his blood turn cold. The Devourers had been quiet for over 50 years. Ancient enemies from the dark spaces between stars, they consumed entire worlds and left nothing but empty husks floating in space. What is the status of their defenses? That's the problem, sir. Their shield. Generators are failing. All 3 colonies report the same issue. The defensive systems are shutting down one by one. On his main screen, Yu Ji-ho watched real-time footage from Kepler Station. Massive black ships, each the size of a small moon, moved toward the colony, with terrifying purpose. The station's energy shields flickered like dying flames before going completely dark. Sir, we're getting similar reports from 12 other systems. All outer rim colonies are reporting defensive failures. The pattern became clear within hours. Every world under attack had the same problem. Their defensive shields, which had protected them for decades, were failing at the worst possible moment. General Oh Seung-min had been retired for 3 years, but the council called him back to active duty within days of the first attacks. As the former human military advisor, he had helped design the defense strategies for most Outer Rim worlds. General, Prime Minister Velthar's holographic image addressed him from the Emergency Command Center. "We need to understand why our defenses are failing." Oh Seung-min looked at the tactical displays with growing dread. He recognized the failing systems because he had helped install many of them. "Prime Minister, those aren't your defenses. They're human-designed shield generators that we shared with the colonies 20 years ago. That is impossible. Our engineers have maintained those systems for decades." "Your engineers have performed basic maintenance," Oh Seung-min corrected. "But the core technology, the quantum field generators that actually create the shields, those were built by humans, and they require human quantum codes to function properly." Velthar's crystal form flickered with confusion. "Quantum codes? Every 30 days, the generators need new authorization codes. It's a security feature built into the system. Without the codes, the shields automatically shut down to prevent enemy capture and misuse." The horrible truth settled over the command center like a burial shroud. Humanity had been automatically transmitting the security codes for decades. Now that they were gone, the codes had expired. Dr. Han Mi-young watched the reports from her laboratory on Nexus Prime. As a xenobiologist, she had studied the Devourers more than anyone else alive. Her research had been shared with every major world in the galaxy, helping them prepare defenses against the ancient enemy. But her research had been based on human deep space monitoring data, information gathered by human sensor networks that reached far beyond the edge of known space. "Doctor," her assistant approached nervously, "the Council is asking for updated Devourer behavior patterns. They want to know why the attacks are happening now." Dr. Han looked at her empty computer screens. For 20 years, human monitoring stations had tracked Devourer movements in the dark spaces. They had provided early warnings that allowed worlds to prepare for attacks. "Tell the Council that I cannot provide updated information. The human sensor networks that monitored the Devourers were withdrawn with everything else. We are blind now." The attacks continued to spread. Within 2 weeks, 8 colonies had fallen completely. The Devourer fleets moved through space with the confidence of predators who knew their prey was defenseless. Captain Nam Hyunwoo had commanded one of the human deep space monitoring stations before the withdrawal. Now he sat in a small cafe on a neutral world, watching news reports of the attacks with grim satisfaction. He had warned the Council years ago that the Devourers were massing in the dark regions. Human sensors had detected massive fleet buildups, new ship construction, and coordinated movement patterns that suggested a major offensive was being planned. The Council had dismissed his warnings as human paranoia and fear-mongering designed to justify military expansion. Now those same Devourer fleets were systematically destroying the outer colonies, and the galaxy had no way to track their movements or predict their next targets. On Nexus Prime, emergency council sessions ran continuously. Representatives who had once confidently voted to restrict humanity now faced the collapse of everything they had taken for granted. "The medical facilities on 15 worlds have reverted to pre-human technology," reported the Minister of Health. "Patient survival rates have dropped by 60%. We cannot treat injuries or diseases that were routine to handle just months ago. Agricultural output is failing across the Rim worlds," added the Minister of Resources. "Crop yields are down by half. The farming techniques we relied on were all human innovations. Transportation networks are breaking down," said the Minister of Commerce. "Without human quantum communication relays, we cannot coordinate shipping or maintain supply chains." Prime Minister Velthar listened to each report with growing horror. Every aspect of galactic civilization had become dependent on human technology and knowledge. They had integrated human innovation so completely that they had forgotten where their prosperity came from. Ambassador Choi Nari sat quietly in the gallery, watching the panic unfold. She was the only human remaining in council space, and aliens, who had once ignored her, now hung on her every word. "Ambassador," Minister Veltan approached her after the session, "surely humanity can be reasoned with. Surely they understand that their withdrawal threatens billions of innocent lives." Choi Nari looked at him with the same sad smile she had worn for months. "Minister, when a tree grows tall and strong, do you cut it down because it casts too much shade? What does that mean? It means that consequences follow choices. You chose to see humanity as a threat to be controlled rather than a partner to be valued. Now you face the price of that choice." The reports continued to worsen each day. Devourer fleets advanced deeper into council space, facing no effective resistance. Colonies that had stood for centuries fell in days. Millions of refugees fled toward the galactic core, overwhelming worlds that could barely support their own populations without human agricultural technology. Commander Yu Jiho received the most disturbing report yet from his intelligence networks. Several council member species were beginning to turn on each other, fighting over the remaining resources and safe territories. "Sir, the Veltari Federation is mobilizing warships toward Zephyrian space. They claim the Zephyrians are hoarding medical supplies that should be shared. The great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was fracturing. Without the prosperity that human innovations had provided, without the security that human defenses had maintained, the Council was collapsing into chaos. As the 6th month of humanity's absence ended, one terrible fact became clear to every thinking being in the galaxy. They had not simply lost a member species. They had lost their invisible guardians, and now the darkness was closing in. The massive search operation began 8 months after humanity's withdrawal. Prime Minister Velthar authorized the largest exploration fleet in galactic history with one desperate mission: find the humans and bring them back. Scout leader Lim Dongyuk would have been amused if he could see the alien fleets searching for his people. He sat in the command center of a hidden observation post, watching council ships stumble through space like blind children looking for their parents. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the Veltari search fleet just passed within 2,000 kilometers of our position. They didn't detect us." Lim smiled grimly. Human stealth technology was 50 years ahead of anything the Council had ever seen. Their ships could hide in plain sight, invisible to every scanner the aliens possessed. "What about the others?" "Captain, John reports that the Zephyrian fleet is searching the wrong star system entirely. Captain Park's group is monitoring the Crystalline Collective expedition. They're using sensor technology so outdated that they couldn't find a sun if they were standing on its surface. The search fleets had been looking for 3 months without finding even a trace of human presence. Every probe they sent into former human territory returned with the same report: nothing. No ruins, no debris, no signs that humans had ever existed in those regions. What the aliens did not know was that humanity had been preparing for this day for over 5 years. Scout teams like Lim's had mapped dozens of unexplored star systems far beyond the edge of known space. They had found worlds suitable for terraforming and regions rich in resources that could support a growing civilization. Captain John Su-Young commanded one of the human reconnaissance ships that shadowed the alien search fleets. Her orders were simple: observe everything, record everything, but never reveal their presence. "Captain," her science officer called out, "the latest Council intelligence reports show they're expanding their search to include the Magellanic regions." John shook her head. The Council was looking in all the wrong places. Humanity had not simply moved to nearby systems. They had traveled to regions of space so distant that alien maps did not even show them as existing. "Any word from the colony fleets?" Yes, ma'am. Director Shin reports that Colony Group 7 has successfully established their new settlement. Terraforming is proceeding ahead of schedule. They expect to be fully self-sufficient within 18 months. This was the miracle that the aliens could not comprehend. Human terraforming technology had advanced far beyond what they had shared with the galaxy. What had once taken centuries now took mere decades. Worlds that other species would consider uninhabitable were being transformed into paradise planets in record time. Director Shin Wubin stood on the observation deck of Humanity's Hope, watching the sunset on New Terra. 6 months ago, this world had been a barren rock with a poisonous atmosphere. Now it had breathable air, growing forests, and freshwater oceans. "Status report," he requested as his aide approached. "All primary systems are operational, sir. Population now stands at 200,000. Agricultural output is exceeding projections by 30%. Manufacturing facilities are producing everything we need plus surplus for trade with the other colonies." Shin nodded with satisfaction. Humanity had not simply fled from the Council. They had executed the most ambitious colonization project in history. Dozens of new worlds were being settled simultaneously, each designed to be completely independent and self-sufficient. But the most remarkable achievement was not the speed of colonization. It was the level of technology being deployed. Free from the need to hide their capabilities from suspicious aliens, humans were finally using their full technological potential. Back in Council space, the search efforts were revealing disturbing truths about human capabilities. Dr. Park Ji-woo's abandoned research facilities contained technologies that made alien scientists question everything they thought they knew about physics. "This is impossible," muttered Dr. Thrain, the Veltari scientist examining Park's quantum laboratory. "These energy readings suggest they were manipulating matter at the subatomic level. The precision required would need computers millions of times more powerful than our best systems." His assistant, a young Zephyrian named Kyla, looked up from another device. "Dr. Thrain, this appears to be some kind of terraforming controller. But the settings suggest it could transform an entire planet's atmosphere in weeks, not centuries." "That cannot be correct. Atmospheric transformation is limited by the laws of thermodynamics. Even our most optimistic projections require 500 years minimum." "Sir, I've run the calculations 3 times. If this device works as designed, it could terraform a world in less than 2 years. Dr. Thrain felt a chill run down his spine. If humans possessed such technology, why had they never shared it? Why had they allowed other species to struggle with primitive terraforming methods while they possessed miraculous solutions? The answer was becoming terrifyingly clear. Humanity had been holding back. Everything they had shared with the galaxy was outdated technology, gifts from a civilization that had already moved far beyond what they revealed. Commander Yu Jiho received reports that made his worst fears seem optimistic. Intelligence agents throughout the galaxy brought back evidence of human technological superiority that defied belief. "Sir," his chief analyst reported, "we've discovered human sensor networks that we never knew existed. They've been monitoring our activities for decades with equipment we cannot even detect." "What kind of monitoring?" "Everything, sir. Ship movements, communications, resource allocation, military deployments. They had complete intelligence on every aspect of Council operations." Yu Jiho stared at the data in growing horror. "Are you telling me that humans knew everything we were doing while we knew nothing about their real capabilities?" "That appears to be correct, sir. Furthermore, we've found evidence of human defensive installations in systems we thought were uninhabited. Weapons platforms that could destroy entire fleets, shields that could protect star systems, technologies that operate on principles we don't understand." The search fleets brought back more disturbing discoveries each day. Human construction sites that had been hidden for years, showing evidence of massive industrial capacity. Shipyards that could build vessels larger than anything in the Council fleet. research facilities that had been developing technologies decades ahead of galactic standards. Prime Minister Velthar reviewed the reports with growing desperation. Each revelation made it clearer that the Council had not been dealing with an equal member species. They had been trying to control a civilization that was already far beyond their ability to threaten or contain. "How long?" he asked his science advisor. "How long have they been this advanced?" "Based on the evidence, sir, we estimate that human technology has been superior to ours for at least 30 years, possibly longer." "Then why did they never use it against us? Why did they accept our restrictions and limitations?" The advisor hesitated before answering. "Sir, we believe they were protecting us." "Protecting us from what?" "From ourselves, sir, and from threats we didn't know existed." Captain John watched from her hidden ship as another Council search fleet gave up and returned to their home systems. The aliens were beginning to realize that finding humanity would be impossible. They lacked the technology to track human movements, the knowledge to predict human strategies, and the capability to follow where humans had gone. But more importantly, they were beginning to understand that they had never been the dominant power in the galaxy. They had been protected children, sheltered by guardians they had mistaken for equals. As the search operations failed one after another, a new and terrible question began to emerge in Council discussions. If humans were so advanced, if they possessed such overwhelming technological superiority, why had they never conquered the galaxy? The answer, when it came, would terrify them even more than their current crisis. Because humanity had been protecting the galaxy from something much worse than themselves, and now that protection was gone. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Council faced complete collapse. Half of their territory had fallen to the Devourers. The remaining worlds struggled with failing technology and dwindling resources. Former allies fought each other for scraps of what had once been a prosperous civilization. Prime Minister Velthar stood alone in his private chambers, staring out at the dying lights of Nexus Prime. Power failures had become daily occurrences. The great capital of the galaxy now looked like a shadow of its former glory. A communication request interrupted his dark thoughts. His aide entered with news that made his crystal form flicker with desperate hope. "Sir, we've received a response to your broadcast." 3 days earlier, Velthar had transmitted a message on all frequencies throughout the galaxy, a plea for humanity to return, an offer of complete autonomy, unlimited expansion rights, and full recognition of human technological superiority. It was the surrender of a broken civilization begging for salvation. Put it through. The holographic display activated, but instead of Admiral Kang, a different human appeared. President Quan Ji-hoon stood in what looked like a command center, beyond anything the Council had ever imagined. Behind him, massive displays showed star charts of regions no alien had ever seen. "Prime Minister Velthar," President Quan began, his voice calm, but carrying an authority that made the alien leader shrink back. "I am responding to your recent message." "President Quan, thank you for—" "Please listen," Quan interrupted gently, but firmly. "You have questions that deserve answers." The display shifted to show images that took Velthar's breath away. Vast fleets of human ships, each vessel larger and more advanced than anything in the Council's fleet. Space stations the size of small moons, worlds transformed into perfect gardens in mere months. You asked where humanity went. We went where we always intended to go. Beyond the edge of your maps, beyond the reach of your limitations, to places where we could grow without restriction. The images showed cities that floated in space, their beauty beyond description. Planets where forests and oceans existed in perfect harmony with gleaming metropolises. Children playing in parks under alien suns, their laughter echoing across worlds their parents had terraformed from barren rock. You wondered why we never conquered your territory. The answer is simple. We never wanted to rule over others. We wanted to explore, to grow, to become more than we were yesterday. Conquest would have made us smaller, not larger. Admiral Bayek. Chae-young appeared on the screen next to President Kwan. Her uniform bore insignia that no council military expert could identify, suggesting ranks and authorities beyond their understanding. "You feared our weapons," Admiral Bayek said, "but you never understood what we were defending against." The display changed again, showing the dark regions beyond known space. Massive shapes moved in the void, fleets that dwarfed even the Devourer, armadas. Ancient enemies that made the current attackers look like children with toy weapons. "The Devourers you're fighting now are scouts," Admiral Bayek continued. "Advance forces testing your defenses. The real threat has been building in the dark for centuries, and we've been watching, preparing, keeping them at bay." President Kwan stepped forward again. "Every innovation we shared with your worlds had a dual purpose. Yes, our medical technology saved lives, but it also helped you build resistance to biological weapons. Our shield generators protected your colonies from pirates, but they were designed to stop far worse enemies." The terrible truth settled over Velthar like a crushing weight. Humanity had not simply been members of the galactic community. They had been its secret guardians, preparing for threats that the Council never knew existed. Our quantum communication networks did more than speed up your trade. They allowed us to coordinate early warning systems across the entire galaxy. Our agricultural improvements didn't just increase crop yields. They ensured your worlds could survive long sieges. Professor Yang Jinsu appeared on the screen, his elderly face kind but sad. "We call it the Great Withdrawal Strategy. When a younger species shows fear of growth rather than embracing it, when they choose control over cooperation, it becomes impossible to protect them effectively." "So you left us to die," Velthar whispered. "No," President Kwan replied. "We left you to choose. Face the darkness alone, or accept us as equals in the fight for survival." As if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding throughout Nexus Prime. The largest Devourer fleet ever detected was approaching the capital system. Ships that blotted out stars, weapons that could crack planets, an armada that meant the end of everything. But then something impossible happened. The Devourer ships suddenly stopped their advance. One by one, their weapon systems went dark. Their engines failed. Their massive forms drifted helplessly in space like dead whales floating in an ocean. "What?" Velthar began. "Those ships are now disabled," Admiral Beck announced calmly. "Human weapons platforms hidden throughout the galaxy for decades have activated their suppression fields. The immediate threat to your worlds has been neutralized." The display showed dozens of locations throughout Council space where massive structures decloaked, revealing themselves for the first time. Weapons. Platforms that had been invisible for years, standing ready to protect worlds whose inhabitants never knew they existed. "But this is only a temporary solution," President Kwan continued. "The real war is coming. Enemies from beyond the galactic rim that will make the Devourers look like a minor inconvenience. They've been testing your defenses for a year, probing for weaknesses, preparing for total conquest." Captain Nam Hyun-woo appeared on the screen, wearing the uniform of humanity's deep space reconnaissance forces. "We've been monitoring their buildup for decades. Fleets that number in the millions, weapons that can destroy solar systems, technologies that can corrupt entire worlds." "The choice remains yours," President Kwan said, looking directly at Velthar. "Face this threat alone with your failing technology and broken alliances, or accept humanity as full partners in the galaxy's defense." "What? What would partnership mean?" Velthar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It means treating us as equals, not subjects. It means accepting that growth and advancement are not threats to be controlled, but gifts to be celebrated. It means understanding that diversity of thought and capability makes us all stronger." Admiral Beck smiled for the first time. "It means letting us teach your children how to reach for the stars instead of fearing those who already touch them. The holographic display shifted to show human fleets moving into defensive positions around every council world. Ships that had been hidden for months suddenly revealed themselves, taking up protective formations that would have seemed impossible just days before. "We're already here," President Quan said quietly. "We never really left. We've been watching, protecting, waiting for you to understand that fear of progress leads only to stagnation and death." Velthar looked at the displays showing human ships defending worlds that had rejected them just a year before. Humanity could have let the galaxy burn. They could have watched from their distant colonies as the council collapsed. Instead, they had returned to fight for people who had tried to chain them. "What do you need from us?" Velthar asked. "Partnership," President Quan replied. "True partnership. Let us teach you what we've learned. Let your people grow alongside ours. Let us face the darkness together, as equals reaching for the light." As massive human vessels took defensive positions throughout the galaxy, the age of council supremacy ended not with conquest, but with salvation offered by those they had tried to control. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again, but more importantly, they would never again face the universe alone.